Hello. I was wondering if I might trouble you for a cup of strong black coffee, and in the process engage you with an anecdote of no small amusement.
Hello, and welcome to another episode.
Professional.
It's always Alden. Spoiler alerts, whenever Alden is on the show,
Come on, Alden.
I can at least pretend to be a professional. I cancel the live stream early. I mute my mic. I'm making rookie mistakes in the year of our Lord 2022. This is sad. Just cancel season 11. Anyway, welcome.
Of life? We're in season 27. No, season 28 for you.
Yes.
Season 27 of Boop.
Yes. Elder millennials?
I don't
Whatever
think
we
count.
are. I'm an amorphous blob that's identifies as J-Dub sometimes. And that's Boop. Rocking the flannel. You could be seeing this if you were tuning in live.
But also rocking the rainbow shorts.
You know, you got to be comfy. You got to be comfortable.
I am well dressed from the waist up, as is my brand.
We don't ever promise to be more than we are. We're a show. We're a couple of folks that like Star Wars and like talking about Star Wars and other things we like with people we like. And so, you know, it's not going to get much easier than that, you would think.
You would think.
But no.
Some people have a habit of making it a little hard.
Well, yeah, that's human nature. We make things so much more difficult than it needs to be. But it's really not that hard. Get together for a special day with your friends and talk about what you like about it. Because you know, just chef's kiss to Sky Daddy for this, because like the calendar lined up perfectly.
Can we revisit Chef's kiss to Sky Daddy, please?
Yeah, what?
Nothing. I just want to let that breathe for a second. That you said that out loud.
Yes, that's the new rating system for Nerdherder. Chef's kiss to Sky Daddy. We are talking about something on the very day that it enters a new year of life, 4th anniversary of a beloved, for some, Star Wars animated show.
Bluey.
It's just a Star Wars. It's amazing that it just happens to be on the day. Usually we're like a week ahead, a week behind, or months behind. You know, it just depends on when J-Dub gets his act together.
Listen, man, J-Dub make plan, Sky Daddy laugh.
But today is the day, and so we are here to celebrate Star Wars Resistance. And so before we do, I worked really hard, not really, on promos for the content. So we'll throw that up and get our guests in here and then have a good time. How about that?
Can you imagine what it's like to be an ace pilot?
I've got a mission for you.
Yes!
Find out who's loyal to the good guys and who isn't.
You can work on my team.
Get ready to be impressed.
But when it comes to your mission as a spy, I don't want anything to do with it.
This should be good.
Looks like there was a system here, but there's
no star.
Those planetoids. What could have done that?
Pirates, scramble the aces!
You need troops to protect your station, not racers.
First Order will provide all aerial security.
All racers are officially grounded.
Are you serious? We need a plan.
All remaining systems will bow to the First Order!
Let's blast some bucketheads!
Kazuda, if you can leave Castellon, join us.
Keep your head down until things cool off.
Damn!
The First Order has a way of making people disappear.
We are the Resistance now. And we're taking back the Colossus.
If you are not capable of dealing with them, then I will find someone who can.
They're everywhere. Entire planets are just giving up.
It's just like the Empire when I was a kid.
The resistance is proving to be stronger than we anticipated.
I got him!
We're good to go.
Punch it!
Dang.
Well, now I'm pumped, as if I wasn't already. But even more pumping. I'm regretting this already,
As
but
you should. Can
all
you
the more
take that again,
exciting
please?
is we have the lovely friends of the show. Been here before, but always great to have you back, Lauren and Alden. Welcome. Good evening.
Hey.
Hello.
Hello.
Thanks
How
for
are you?
lowering your standards once again.
Beautiful babes.
They lower more and more every day. You just happen to catch me as they're on the way down.
That's just, I wait and watch.
Exactly.
The standards aren't low enough to spread butter on a board. Alden.
No, never. Not even icing will. Even that's too
I don't want to
low.
know, but I feel like
No,
I'm gonna
no.
know.
You're gonna know because I have been subjecting Alden over text massage.
Text massage.
Okay, thanks, Laszlo.
You're welcome. Text massage. To my thoughts on butterboards, unprompted and unfiltered. And
They were prompted. It was just prompted because I liked one tweet that you said about it. I didn't even respond. And then Boop was like, I guess that's my person to talk about this with.
Yeah, that is consent. That is consent for all of my butter opinions now.
Just
Thank
a
you,
curse
sir.
word dribble.
That's a thing.
That's a
Butterboard.
thing, baby.
Oh dear
Okay,
Lord.
the millennials.
Oh dear
Talk
Lord.
about them for a second. Just they're spreading cream cheese and frosting on like charcuterie boards.
Oh no.
Yeah,
And,
it just goes straight on instead of being in its own little like for condiments. Like it's just in
Exactly.
there. Just in
What
there.
are we doing as a society?
Right. Well, I know I
Collapsing.
was watching a cooking thing recently where like they didn't use a board at all. Like it was just
Put it on the
their countertop.
Oh no.
And it made me so anxious
This is
the
a
entire
family
time.
show. I can't say curse words on it.
It was upsetting to say the least.
Oh yikes.
That is
Yikes.
deeply concerning.
Yes.
In fact, there are characters in this Resistance TV show that we're going to be talking about that I'm sure would do that.
Oh, for sure.
All of them first order.
Well,
You don't think that Kaz would eat like cold spaghetti leftovers over a sink?
He absolutely would. Yeah.
Oh,
He would. Yeah.
He's the breakfast spaghetti of character of Star Wars for sure.
Kaz breakfast spaghetti.
And yes, if you're ever wondering, folks listening, why we bury ourselves in this ridiculous space opera of a franchise, that's why. Because life is scary and butterboards exist.
Yes.
So there you go.
Correct.
But no, thank you. You both jumped very eagerly on this one, on joining for Resistance, which was exciting because part of the reason I wanted to get this on the calendar, we haven't really done any Resistance specific content before because always finding the audience for it or finding folks interested enough in it was the challenge. It seems like it flies below the radar for a lot of people. It happened, but we've moved on. Or altogether, just some people have very strong negative opinions about it. And so I was very glad that you both seem to really be eager to, not bribed in any way, join us.
That you know of.
Right.
Wait, I'm getting paid. Alden, aren't you getting paid?
I will exact a toll, whether it's in money or otherwise.
I feel yes.
In your eternal soul.
The toll is the awkwardness of me attempting to function StreamYard. Apparently,
Look, as somebody that operated StreamYard literally for the first time today, as I told you off air on another channel, I understand why that vertical menu could potentially be more of a series of buttons on the bottom. There are some designs that
we have some notes for Stream. I'm giving you money, StreamYard. I feel like I'm due my opinion as well.
Technically, the patrons are giving them money.
That's true. Thank you to our patrons. Big thank you to our patrons. Like 15-inch thank you to our patrons because.
Do you want to please give some context?
One of our patrons actually gifted me a Lego Optimus Prime.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
I lost my mind. So
did you assemble it yet?
Sugar daddy.
Not yet. That's going to be my depression build tomorrow because Saturdays are like my hump day to get like into the next week, because my week starts on a Sunday. So it's like, all right, this is the last little bit of light, and then I die.
I feel that.
Thanks.
So anyway, Star Wars Resistance.
Your Star Wars Resistance. You were saying like you're surprised that we jumped at it, which I understand, and that there are people that have strong negative feelings or skipped it altogether. And you know, J-Dub, not everyone has taste like the four of us. That's a joke. That's a joke. You don't have to like everything. Don't go tweet that I told you what to think, for the love of God.
That is at that Alden Diaz, everybody on Twitter.
Yeah. You can tweet me.
Oh yeah.
I'm advising that you don't.
Right.
But you can.
For your own safety. I wouldn't, but you can.
I just love this. So all this to say, I was so happy when this was on your topics list. You've always been great about choosing them, whether that's character-focused conversations, project conversations, like about a whole show, and then, of course, your magnum opus, the Nicolas Cage series. Which
That's
is
truer than you know, because I don't know if I've shared this with Pickle Chat. I definitely haven't put it on Twitter, but I'm going to use my one for everybody. Damn you. Our most popular episode to date in 4 years of podcasting
is the Nick Cage one. Yes,
the Nicolas Cage one where we talk about
amazing.
Well, and I don't want to tell tales outside of school about the Nerdherder Discord server, but I will say that if you're there, Nick Cage conversations are still happening about the future. and much to J-Dub's chagrin, everyone keeps encouraging it.
Oh, for sure. I'm the only one there with a sour face.
You don't think when we talk about Moonstruck, because I'm going to make you watch Moonstruck.
Watch a lot of things.
I'm going to watch, I'm going to do the full, I lost my hand. I lost my
So if anything, like as much as it pains me, I am a masochist, and so for the life and longevity of the show, you've ensured we're going to go forever, because if that's what y'all want, you'll get it. I'll just hate it the entire time.
That's what it takes, honestly, baby. I'm down.
And what is Star Wars Resistance if not the Nicolas Cage of Star Wars?
Ooh, good call.
Weird, kind of off-center, beloved.
I'm down.
It is for the children, but also is not.
But I like, but I like it. I like Star Wars Resistance.
And you like Nicolas Cage. It just takes a bit to sink in. Sometimes 20
I
plus years.
respect them. They tried to they tried to therapize me on that episode about why I don't like Nicolas Cage. It didn't work, but
I tried twice.
I respect him. But I love Star Wars Resistance. So thank you both for being on, attempting to have a conversation about Star Wars Resistance and not Nicolas Cage.
I was validated by Peter Townley on the last Hyperfocus. I would like to say that.
I sure would love that man to validate me.
That's one thing to call it.
I mean, hey, I wanted that Peter Warren Last Jedi production shirt.
Yeah, forgot that.
Just tell me what it smells like after we're done here.
Like farm.
Oh, you took the Warren option. Nice.
Yes, I did. Definitely.
It's
had to.
Had
to.
Man's a ranger, and he is beautiful.
Oh my goodness.
Who tells no lies?
If you can recount, because again, we just blessed with the calendar year that this is the day, October 7th, that 4 years ago, Star Wars Resistance premiered.
Yeah.
I know normally these remembered, obviously we're playing off of Rebels Remembered and all of that. And part of that's, a small community jabbing back at like, hey, like this show exists and is awesome too. Like, can we get a whole day dedicated to it? But so October 7th, 2018, this lovely little show dropped in our laps. It existed for a short time and was a very fun ride. But for you, obviously, now you're here first for whatever reason you love it now. Did you love it then? If you remember way back to when this premiered, was it an instant hit like some other shows or some Star Wars properties, or was it something that grew on you to the point that you're like, hey, yeah, I could talk about that for an hour? Also, Nicolas Cage stuff.
I loved it from the beginning because I liked the different animation that they went with. like kind of anime, kind of not, but it was nice. It was different than Rebels and different than Clone Wars. So I loved it. I loved the story. I loved the characters. I loved how, it is geared towards a younger generation. No problem with that. But they still had some deep themes in this show in both seasons. Like,
absolutely.
Especially at the end of season 1, when they get to the moment of where we are, in the Phantom or the Force Awakens. Like, we see that speech and how it reverbs through the galaxy, and we see how it, affects these people specifically in this, in the Colossus. So I loved it. I love the characters. I love the animation. I love the voice acting was great. They had great choices.
Oh.
It was amazing. I loved it from the start. Yeah.
That's awesome. Were you pretty similar, Alden, or was this a grow on you kind of?
It was jarring, but positively, where this is an instance, this sort of Rebels kind of flirted with this Star Wars trend that they have pretty much embraced, much to some people's chagrin, other people's celebration, which is that what is pitched and what it is called is often either a straight up misdirect, like in The Mandalorian, where it's about so much more, and the trailers blatantly sold a show that was not made. They sold you the gunslinger, dark, sort of straight up Western. They did not show you the mystical baby and everything that would be at the heart of that. Rebels was like, we called it Rebels, but we knew that it was a few years out. So like that one was a little bit more honest, but still was about a lot more. Rebels is not a show about the rebellion. It's about a cell that joins the rebellion, but it is also just as much a Jedi story, just as much an Imperial story, mystical creatures, all that. Resistance was similar. When the show was announced, we knew that it was Dave Filoni executive produced, but he was obviously, his role had increased so much that it was Dave Filoni's team, and it was his idea. He created it, and then he gave it to the crew. And yeah, he co-created the characters, and if he came in and was like, do this, they would listen. But it was his most hands-off, but it still came from his fascination with like Robotech and fighter pilots and anime and all that. Yeah. So they sold you something that was like, oh, we're going to spend a lot of time in the air, dog fighting. But then the closer we got to the show, the trailers, I remember thinking, this is a misdirect. Like this is something else. It's not that. And I read that Comic-Con that year, they had the full-size fireball that you could sit here and take pictures. And they kept being like, oh, it's about pilots. And it is, but it's not.
You're there.
They're there. The aces are there, but they're all side characters except for Torah. And and that ends up being more the backdrop for what is really a story about community, and like a tiny one. The Colossus is huge, but it's a platform on a planet in the galaxy this big. But what it ended up being was essential to, not essential that you'll miss anything if you don't watch it, but an essential addition to the sequel era. When people say, I wish I had more context for the sequels, and they didn't watch this, this is the cure for that problem. This is what like, this is, if Princess and the Scoundrel, which I happen to have right here because I'm rereading it, is 6.1 in the Skywalker saga, and Shadow of the Sith is 6.5, this show is 6.9. Like, this is right there. Season 1 brushes up against Force Awakens, and then Poe's like, hey, I got to go do something, and you realize that Force Awakens is happening. They sort of tee up little things like, he's from Hosnian, and if you're a kid watching, you don't know what that means, but if you're an adult watching, you're like, oh my God. Like, this is they're going to do something horribly dark, and then it happens later. And ultimately, my last point about this is that, like, it hit me in the right places in terms of what I needed. We watch so much heavy TV. I love heavy TV. I love dark shows. I love brutal shows. I needed something that was unabashedly slapstick. Like, it some people say, like, oh, it's so goofy. And it's like, what, you think it doesn't know? Like, that's intentional. It's trying to be. Yeah, it was the end of the Disney XD era. That could be a conversation later, but I think that if it had gotten the chance to premiere on Plus, it would maybe still be going, because that money was not on the table yet, and they were diverting money. If you're at all curious why Clone Wars Season 7 was able to happen in such a way that it did, it's because of the death of Resistance. People were pulled over to work on that. But it's been said over the past week or two that Andor is sort of the inverse of The Mandalorian. It's not. If Andor has another side of the coin, it's Resistance. Andor skews up in the same way that Resistance skews down on the age chart, not the quality chart.
Sure. Yeah.
And like people, oh, it's the first Star Wars for adults, and they're all shocked about it, which really is not. It's still Star Wars. This is Star Wars for the crowd that's even younger than the Rebels crowd, but any adult can have a blast with this. And it does get dark and it does get brutal. I mean, Kylo Ren using the Force to threaten somebody with the prospect of shooting their own brains out.
Yeah.
There are things in this that are hard, and it's a great story. And I thought it was lovely, and it's one of those things, much like other shows like Angel. Shout out to the Buffy fans, I guess. Like
all two of them.
Like
right
me.
You're right here.
And Molly Damon.
Yeah.
And Molly Damon.
That is true.
And Molly Damon.
Okay,
I keep bullying her to try to do Buffy Explained. I hope it happens one day.
Ooh.
But
I would die.
it'd be so cool. It's the same channel, but in like black and red. It would be amazing.
Yes.
But Angel was canceled, but was canceled with enough legroom and leeway and lead time. I mean, to end its story, even though the show should have and could have gone longer, it's still a beautifully it's like a little book. Like where it ends, you're still like, yes. So there's my really long answer to how I felt about
it. So if I could surmise that in one word, it'd be good.
Good.
Or neat. In honor of Connor.
Needy. Big day for him yesterday with that Italian plumber.
Oh my god!
Big day for all Italians, really.
Good trailer. Speaking of it,
I mean, it was great.
I'm very happy with it. I'm very excited for making it about Bowser.
The excitement that coursed through my body hearing Jack Black as Bowser.
Yeah.
If I didn't know it was him, I probably wouldn't be able to place it. I didn't know he had it in him.
It's
Kung Fu Panda. He doesn't have to change his voice, you know.
Exactly.
So. For sure.
Excellent movies.
Boop.
Yes, dear.
So.
Oh yeah, I have to answer this question too.
Yeah, yeah. Like, was it? Did it build up for you? Because this was obviously something on the long list of you gotta watch. Like, you know, like we're going through introducing you to things that like, because it was just the movies forever. It was on the list, but was it like a slow burn because of that, or was it pretty squarely like, oh no, this is fun?
It's one of those things, like before I watched it, I was definitely hyped for the concept. Like it's dope. It focusing at least a little bit on the pilots, which is everybody's favorite rapscallions of the galaxy. So that's always something I'm excited to explore. But then you get into it and it's so much deeper than that. Like y'all said, like it is very much a show for all ages, and I absolutely adore the backgrounds on this dang show.
Yes.
It's
so
beautifully
gorgeous.
animated. Like
it's lovely. It's sort of like if they made Zelda Wind Waker a show. It's like all cel shady and stuff.
That's exactly why I love it.
Actually, that's exactly what it is. And
just imagine seeing Link on the King of Red Lions in the background.
Well, and you know, like just to get it out there, because we'll go places with this conversation, but yeah, like the animation, this is some of my favorite like Star Wars animation in general.
It's up there for me too. Yeah.
I've never been one of those like, oh, Clone Wars looks like, so bad and blocky and whatever. Or
the first season is hard to watch, but after that it gets better.
It's just never hit me. I was showing you a music video from one of my favorite like PlayStation 2 games from 2003. So it's like,
what a sentence. What a sentence just on that its own before you even say what it is. We're showing you a music video from the PlayStation 2 game.
Everybody go look up Kill All Squishies by Courtney Gears.
Love that. Love everything about that.
Look up Blood Ugly Aliens.
I've seen that. You know what? Yeah,
Jimmy Neutron.
I
look
love
up Beast Wars.
I love Beast
Look
Wars.
up Code Lyoko.
Code Lyoko.
Hey, okay, hang on. Everything else is on the table. You leave my
That wasn't an insult. I meant it. Look it up. I support
it. Amazing. Oh my gosh. Anyway, I love bad animation. I've been around enough to like see that and fall in love with like 8 polygons. So like none of this has ever bothered me, but this looks good. Like if you're
It looks so good, man.
if you put stills of each one and we're like, hey, which one do you think fits an animated Star Wars show? I'd probably go with this one. Everybody looks the part. Like Poe looks like Poe. Leia looks like Leia.
He's got that space New York accent.
You know that
Well,
the
there's some
species look like the
controversy
species.
about Poe.
Oh,
There's
in
some
this show,
controversy
really,
about his design. People that are that we interact with a lot in different places, such as Discord and on Twitter, are very angry at the fact that Poe has no booty in Resistance. That he is super flat. I tried to say it without swearing. That he.
No, you can say ass. This is a family show, but
he is the no C.
So he Poe doesn't have his signature ass, and as Oscar talked about when they were shooting Rise, sitting in the cockpit, he was like, "This was made for like Harrison Ford." He's like, "But I have Latin hips." He's like, "So our friend, my friend and yours, Chris Swift, Oscar Isaac is the love of his life, and he loves Resistance, but he has a vendetta against the animators for making him flat ass."
Oh my gosh. Put it up there with what they did with Tsunade and Baruto. I don't know what to do for you, but that's a deep cut reference, by the way.
You made that on a panel where it would land with at least one person.
So. There we go.
I mean, we got a freaking Toby.
Yeah,
is that his name?
It's Toby's mask
right there. Spirit Halloween.
Naruto, 30 years of manga, 20 years of anime. That's amazing.
What?
Yeah.
I'm old.
Thanks, Toonami.
I will agree with that. Some of the lanky proportions, because everybody feels tall. I don't know how else to describe it, but like if you look at a lot of these folks, they all seem very tall. And I think it's just like everybody's a little elongated. And I think that, Poe, they just stretched him out a little bit. And so the Latin was just a little bit thinner throughout the whole height of him, is what I'll say. But yeah, I love the animation. It's a very beautiful show at several points as well.
There was a point where we had it paused and I was just staring at the screen going, God, that's beautiful.
Yeah, it was like sunset on Castellan and everything.
Yeah.
So it's a very beautiful show. Oh my gosh. Well, and that's the thing too. So like you mentioned, like a lot of this is so a lot of this is racing, spying, Colossus real estate. But it does get out there on a few side quests. Especially in season 2. We get to see some interesting places and go on a few fun adventures. Did you so we've said in general, yes, we like it. Did you have a preference for where like the story fell? Because there were the kind of slice of life episodes where we're just goofing off with the pirates, but then there were all right, we're going to name drop a few things to make sure they know we're at 60 minutes and 30 seconds in The Force Awakens. Like stuff like that. Like, did you have a preference, or was it just the perfect mixed and cocktail of both?
I didn't need that. I liked what it would title in Force Awakens. You get Kylo is alluded to before he's named or shown, and you get Phasma as a character, and Poe, obviously. BB-8 is way more in the show than I thought he'd be when they were promoting it. I was like, oh, BB and Poe will probably be in and out. Poe's in about 3 times, I think, but BB-8 is there for like 2/3 of the season.
Yeah.
And is a legitimate cast member for a lot of it. And then CB-23 is incredible. One of my favorite.
It was very noticeable when they swapped. Well, and then also I have to say, like, CB is the hero of this show. I think.
You're right.
Like,
Correct.
if we went through and watched and tallied every time she saved everyone's butts, I think it's upward of 3 dozen.
And from like huge threats, and of course named for Lucasfilm's Carrie Beck, who heads up.
Really, I didn't know that.
CB. That's why she's the only CB, because they were like, oh, let's do a little.
I thought it was funny that it was like CB-23. I was like, that's a bit more of a mouthful, but we've run out of unique droid names here and there.
After a while, they're like, just put in like R4P17. Like they were just like, give them another digit. I don't know.
Well, it reminds me, because I'm actually on the hunt for droids, more growing that part of my shelf in my collection. And I have very specific ones I'm into, and what I'm finding, it's a lot of Power of the Force era droid figures.
Nice.
And so what I'm finding is a lot of it, so it's like R2B5, R2Q4. It's like a lot of like before they realized, wait, we don't have to do R2. It's like,
Yeah, we could expand out and yeah, that's an interesting thing to track, and it's an interesting thing to track here. Like, you know, I'll finish answering the question, but then like that's a great point. We'll throw it to low, of course, and then but that droids and creatures sort of extravaganza that this show is. But
for sure,
yeah, I liked when it was fleshing out the era, whether that was impacted by the sequels or not. Some of it's very direct, like arriving to Dakar right after the Radis is gone.
Yeah.
So like you know where you are in Last Jedi as well. And then by the time you can see when Last Jedi has started and when Last Jedi has ended, because you get the Supreme Leader Kylo Ren. So it's cool to see the way that it gives more context. Like this is up there with Shadow of the Sith or with like Aftermath and everything for giving you a fuller picture of the era, because you get Doza's backstory and we'll talk about Vanessa Doza, my favorite in the entire show. The greatest space mommy of them all. But she is, and I mean space mommy and I mean space mommy. Like
I got
MAMI mommy. Yeah, she's great, and just everything that it did to give you an idea of the way things were politically in terms of like, again, like in the prequels, a slow creep of fascism. It's not like it was the blow up of Hosnian, but it was like, well, they just kind of show up to the platform sometimes and we just kind of deal with it and they leave. And it's like, okay, that's good for now. And it gave me one of my favorite villains with that, Pyre, who's my favorite. Pyre's my favorite. I would go this far. Armored villains. So your Phasmas and your every trooper, everyone, every Imperial or First Order that has rank. Not Mandalorians. Just bad guys. Yeah,
all right. I just want
there are bad Mandalorians, but I guess what I should say is Imperials and First Orders that hold rank or wear armor. So I put Pyre like so high up, man. I love that Power Ranger idiot. Like he's the best. So that would be my answer. Is like a bit of both, but the ones that gave you an idea of like, oh, this is what it's like. Like the two children. I forget the planet they're from. The stowaways, or the survivors.
But one of the
they all hide in the inner workings with those things. Like their whole story, like some people were like, oh, it's just these kids, they don't really even talk much, like they don't have a lot of character. And it's like, well, they're traumatized, and what they are saying speaks to the era. Like, oh, these planets, like, oh, there wasn't really much going on out there, but it's about implications.
Right.
What happened there? If you're putting the pieces together, it was all the Star Killer tests.
Yeah, well, exactly. It was breadcrumbs to that big reveal that's going to intersect at some point. Which I thought was interesting. You had a thing with Pyre too.
Yeah, I called him a space pimp, which is accurate.
The
so accurate.
Gun,
he and Phasma both look better in Cell Shade.
Yes, yes, you're so right. I think that the whole First Order, the standard troopers.
I love the helmet change.
I love a rounded mask.
Looks good.
The rounded, like the Rebels troopers with like their like sort of like bulbous, sort of softer shapes. Again, I think you mentioned with the Clone Wars like that wasn't your like favorite, like the sort of the blockiness and everything. Did you say that, or did I imagine that?
No, the first couple of seasons of the Clone Wars was like hot ass.
Well, they're just
it's rough. That first season is
it's rough to go back, but I prefer like, and of course like the way that it has developed, like Clone Wars season 7 and Bad Batch look like art, and some of those trees look real. But if you like at gunpoint, I would want my Star Wars shows to look like Rebels or Resistance.
Yeah,
agreed.
I agree.
I agree with that.
It's not so stylized that it's like it feels like there are many times when like, and I think that's why like Cad Bane showing up in Book of Boba Fett was so jarring. It's because that Cad Bane in animation is Clone Wars animated. It's not a 1-to-1 Duros.
Exactly.
I feel like in Rebels and Resistance, they go a little bit more 1-to-1 because they're dealing with so much legacy in those shows, which I guess you could argue like, you know, Anakin's a main character in Clone Wars. I don't know.
The thing about that is that it was its own from 2008 on, but it was in the tradition of the Tartakovsky. Even though they're not connected, the Dooku carries over, the Grievous carries over, kind of like the Tartakovsky Grievous is more all white and stuff. But
but I would still take Gindi over Clone
I probably
like
would
2008.
too.
Like,
Could you imagine
and
Could you imagine all 7 seasons of that done in 2D?
oh my god, I would love it. I don't want this to be a we don't like Clone Wars animation
No,
video
it's
ever.
not. It's still
No.
gorgeous, but
It's just here and it gets better, guys. It
It gets
does.
so much better. You see the fear
Well, I
in
think
Ninjaris's eyes.
I think Resistance too did the same thing. I mean, really, I think the animation from season 1 to season 2
Yeah.
vastly improved. Not vastly, I don't want, but you could tell those shots, especially in season 2 with the Colossus. Man, there were just some gorgeous shots when it was in space.
But didn't feel like we had to wait for it to get better because, like, I remember with Rebels, like in like mid season 2, where we really started seeing more than just Lothal and space. It started to get a little more detailed because it's like, all right, we've got to do new things.
Yeah, you
Clone
earn the
Wars,
audience trust, your budget. You have to like you
right?
sort of get there. It gears up like it, and that was like visually and in terms of story, right? Because season 2, it's like you got like Eos Prime. You have the casino where the Bluey the Hutt lives. I forget his name, but
No, I like Bluey the Hutt.
But I feel like from the get-go,
change your Twitter name right now.
although it expanded, Resistance looked great. Like when they first roll up on the Colossus, you see them racing up above them and everything Kaz is taking. Like it looks really good from the get-go. It's like if we had gotten season 7 animation in 2008.
Yeah.
And so, but for you, before we go too far from that point, Flo, like, was it slice of life or movie tie-in for you, or kind of similarly, kind of that cocktail?
Yeah, I think it was the combination of of it all. Like you kind of knew where you were in the area or in this era. You know, you're like, okay, this is where we are with The Force Awakens. Okay, Last Jedi, we know where we're at. And I did like, I think Alden, you mentioned kind of earlier where like the show didn't rely on these old characters that we knew. These are fresh characters. And it kind of reminds me of Andor in a way where like we are more ground level than, you know, with these characters that we have grown up with Anakin, with Obi-Wan, with all that. So I like how Resistance really did the kind of ground level in its own way, and you're following this certain type or this certain community, like Alden was saying too earlier, this certain community of a Colossus where like it's just these people living on a huge space platform. And then like everything kind of just falls apart like right in front of them. And we know what is going on in other areas, but to see it from their version, especially for Kaz, especially for his, you know, his parents being on Hosnian and knowing what that meant for us, because we knew what happens in The Force Awakens. Like that's some deep stuff. But again, I liked how they blended it in though. They didn't go like too far. They didn't, you know, they didn't like not ignore it. They did a nice blend of like showing us where we were, what we were doing in this era, and then other things that were happening because we were just focused on, at that time, you know, focused on Rey and Poe and all that. But now we were focused on this whole other group and what they were going through. And it was a really fun adventure for 2 seasons. And I agree with Alden. Disney Plus, we would have got more if this was a couple years later. I think we would have got more seasons of this, and it would have been great. It would have been great.
I agree. I was even thinking, I was like, man, if they one day just dropped, it's just like, you know, sequel Star Wars Colossus, like I'd be just as
you're
there.
similar to me in that way, where I was like, what about like just like a 2-hour special and you call it like Star Wars Resistance: The Battle of Exegol? Because like we know that they're there. I don't know if you've read the novelization of Rise, but they do the call-ins that are not in the movie, and you can hear Kaz go like Fireball standing by, and then
when I think Fireball's the only one visually there, if I remember, or
they're all okay. So like
not make it.
It's one of those things where it's like if you like squint and maybe like it's like I know that Fireball, Taura's ship, and Rieger's ship. Yeager is from Mass Effect 2. Kyle Rieger is a character from Mass Effect 2. That's the thing we're not talking about. Yeager's ship is, they're all there because they showed in a video, an ILM video, the live action assets. So they're in there, but in the same way that hundreds ships are in there. So it's like where? I don't know.
Ships there.
And the Colossus was there, wasn't it, on Exegol? I can't remember. I don't know why I want to say
like
that, but I could be wrong.
a fortress thing was there. Whether it was that one, we don't know.
We don't know. All right, that's fair. That's fair.
As hell.
Yeah, I love a vertical ship. I love a non-traditional starship because lo and behold, like space physics aren't the same as like aerodynamics are not a factor. All of these things.
No.
And
So
also,
you love those big fortresses in Last Jedi, the bomber fortresses.
Yeah. Well, and what's the one from Star Wars Squadrons?
I don't know.
Oh.
We've heard him talked about forever, and then they like finally
the Starhawk.
Yes,
Yeah.
like
Is it Starhawk?
it looks like a
I think so.
flying gun. It just looks like a flying gun, which essentially it does kind
like Megatron.
No, rabbit hole. I like weird shit.
Transformers.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do think that's part of the misdirect with it is Star Wars Rebels and Star Wars Resistance tells you what you need to know in like the level of the character pyramid that this story is taking place. And that's kind of what it prepares you for. And lo and behold, like in a story of like normies, by many accounts, you're going to get a very different, very either familial or communal kind of story. Like it just builds around the relationships of these characters more than the cause. The cause is there. It's the commonality of them, but it's not the thing. Ultimately, they're trying to protect the Colossus and their way of life. Like with the Ghost Crew, it's like we're trying to stay together regardless of our sides, because Rebels really blows the top out because you've got the Mandalorian cause, you've got the Rebel cause, you got the Jedi cause, you've got like so many things at play. For me, I really did enjoy the movie tie-in stuff, not because I felt like it needed to latch on to the movies, but I liked the buildup of the First Order because like they kind of just show up in The Force Awakens. Hosnian is just gone. You just told me that planet's name. I don't know much about it. I have no connection. This really builds that out. It gives a little bit more of where they come from, but also a little bit more mystery. It's just like they're showing up, they're mining something, and then they're gone. It's just like they're working in the shadows. I thought that was interesting. I liked the New Republic is here and they know about us, but the Resistance isn't like endorsed in every like. It just felt like it was the world building missing from at least episode 7 for me. Like feed it to me. I loved it. You've talked about it before. I was crying when the credits were like rolling. Yes. But I loved so much of it that I wanted answers to. Not like the like nerd I'm gonna hassle like Lucasfilm employees on Twitter.
100%. Yeah.
It's just like
wait, and I love 7 too, but 7 is not a criticism for anybody watching or listening. But it is just it does it very well. So it's, again, not bad, but it's a slight overcorrection on the prequel era of like, I think that they were like, well, after those, taxation of traitors things that everyone made fun of for 20 years, maybe we just are less than 20, I know, but maybe we just allude to things like, and it has less of it. Like you could pick it up. Like they talk about in Force Awakens that the Resistance, like Huck says in his speech, like the Resistance is supported by the New Republic. You get a little bit of it in the crawl. So like it can be pieced together, but Resistance fully fleshes it out. Like opening the pilot with Leia and with Poe recruiting Kaz, and Kaz is in the blue flight suit of the New Republic X-Wing. Like that was the first time we ever saw that.
With those sexy new X-Wings too.
Yeah. 80s or 85s or whatever they are. But yeah, they to show you like, oh, okay, so they didn't want to fight on the record, and that's what happened, and everything got turned down. Hi, Page Turners. So that whole I might know your name, Page Turners. I just don't know your name offhand. Some people
Brennan Marr.
That's Brennan Marr. Of course it is. Yeah. So, I hear we might be battling soon in a certain trivia match, Brennan Marr. But
easy on our buddy there.
That hasn't been fully announced. So
right.
But yeah. It's just an interesting way to provide a little bit more of like forward momentum. That way, by the time Poe meets Lor Santeca, you're like, oh, he's been
I get
doing
what
this.
leading.
And,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so for me, it's less of, oh, a movie character showed up. It's definitely that world building. It's like, oh, this is
Yeah.
like, like you mentioned, like when he mentions Jakku, when like, it wasn't, it was very on the nose. We knew what was going on when they rolled up and those planets were like cored out. It's like,
Mhm.
it's almost like you can't wait for them to realize what you know, and they're inadvertently getting you more excited about what was
Yeah.
30 seconds of a movie.
It's the bomb
Right.
under the table. The old. Have you never heard that?
No.
It's the
There's a
precursor to
bomb?
J.J. Abrams' mystery box. You know that there's a bomb under the table, but the characters do not know because you can see from the other side.
Oh yeah,
Alfred Hitchcock was a genius.
yeah,
That's all you need to know.
you're glued to it as the events
Exactly.
as they realize
the
what
possibility.
yeah.
And that's the thing, is like we knew that the show was gonna grow up the entire time because they put the Hosnian thing out there, and Kaz's dad being a senator, and like they marked his home for death
Yeah.
in a Disney show from the beginning.
Well, and you admit
From episode 1.
Yeah. So which makes it sadder that you
Yeah.
missed that
I did
early on.
Yeah. And then when they rename dropped it, I was just like, oh,
Yeah, when
his
like Huck
family's
shows up.
dead.
Yeah.
Dope.
It was because it was interesting because it was more sudden, and so you got to have that full like, wait, did they just like you had the
Yeah.
whole reaction, whereas
Mhm.
again, although I'm like internally invested the first time this is happening, I'm also just sitting
Mhm.
there like, like I'm
What's
just
gonna come of this?
watching, but
Yeah.
you're like you were into it because of that.
Exactly.
And I like how, again, we're talking kind of about lore building too. I mean, we had a artifact like hunter. What was her name? Mika Gray.
Yeah.
Freaking awesome. Like
Yeah.
that whole kind of episode. I can't remember if it was 1 or 2, but like learning about that she was searching for these Sith holocrons or Sith artifacts. Like
Yeah.
that was amazing. That was so cool. Again, we would have never known that if we didn't get a show like Resistance. They set that up for us because of what they did. It was, I love that. That's the little stuff I think I liked about Resistance is it did flesh out, like we're kind of talking about. It fleshed out the world that maybe we weren't aware of at the time because we knew of the sequel trilogy, the Force Awakens, Last Jedi, Rise of Skywalker. We knew what was going on, but to get that other look from a different part of the galaxy and what other people were going through, that was really a lot of what I enjoyed out of the show the most, is seeing what other people were going through during that time, that, Rey's doing this, Poe's doing that, this fight's going on over there, but these people are doing some other stuff over here too, and kind of important things almost too, like a Sith artifact hunter. Like that was so cool and so fresh and so new. I loved it. I loved when they did that stuff in the show.
Well, and what was interesting, and we rewatched Resistance going into this episode, and for whatever reason, this time I'm like realizing, wait a minute, this is well after 8, so this plays a little bit more into what's going on with like the Rise of Skywalker, where like they're hunting or pseudo hunting Palpatine, or answers to what's going on in the unknown region. So it's just like, it's getting a little more
the whole,
mythical.
the fact that there's First Order raiders in that Mika episode, and like
With
that's a newer
good
class.
looking
I mean, that's
armor.
the, like I sort of said it with the droids, but like troop designs, ship designs, creatures, even familiar aliens in new ways. Have been like someone like, we've all loved Plo Koon and we love the Keldor race, but Bo Keevil is like this cooler, it's like he's like a different sort of like a pilot Keldor that we had never seen before, also voiced by Dave Filoni, just like Chopper is.
Yep.
The whole sort of the way that it
He always
embraces
gets
like
one.
the different aesthetics, and people and characters like you were saying, Lil, like Mika, like I talked about my love for Vanessa, who's just incredible. You get a bounty hunter whose name is Axe Tagrin.
Yeah.
Axe to grind. That's the greatest thing.
Axe.
He's awesome.
I want to cosplay as Axe someday, even though that is highly unlikely because I am a very tiny boob.
I think it'd be more awesome
I can stand on someone's shoulders.
We don't know. He might be 5'3", you know?
He might be. He might be a little over Logan sized.
Right. Get Dave Filoni size chart for us, please.
Please.
But same thing with that. Iktachi, like all we had was Sassine 10. Like all we had was that one Jedi that was really cool in Gindis and just there for the prequels.
So cool.
And so like getting another of his species as well, because I don't know if that had happened yet.
More Thorians too, while we're at it. If we're making
more
the
Thorians.
We got a
like
green
said,
Duros.
The Hutts, the Duros. There was the whole Bebo storyline. That's like what's going on there with the steam monster and everything, and it just was willing to embrace like even someone like Aunt Z is the same species as Unkar Plutt, but how she puts a whole different angle on that.
I love
was
Aunt
great.
Z.
She's spectacular.
Absolutely. Well, we're getting into it already, and it's perfect because they are here. So Danny, we got to connect with Danny on Twitter and find out. Wow, you like I thought we liked Resistance. You really like Resistance.
They are spectacular.
And so I was like, all right. So, but like if you had to place why? And for them, it was the characters. Exactly what we're talking about. Like. Just the unique and interesting. There's not a bad one in the bunch, even if they are a side character. Because I think at times, I think you were generous, Alden, in calling some of the aces side characters because we're lucky if they get like 5 lines a season.
They're nigh on glove shitos.
Griff gets all of his like development in that first episode on Eros. Like
Griff hype is probably like. Hierarchy of them is like Torah hype.
Yep.
I think maybe Griff. Is it Freya?
Freya, Freya, and I would say
Freya and Bokeevil are the bottom two.
For last.
Yeah.
Like,
and
obviously,
like,
but like in development, like they're just oh, you have the accent and you have a weird face. Got it.
That's how I keep our friends apart, honestly.
Right.
You're the British one who lives in a trash can. You're Nikki.
So for you, let's go ahead and talk about characters. We'll start with you.
Okay.
Boo. Do you have any favorites?
Oh man. Ooh, I love Bucket. Honestly, Bucket's my favorite character.
Yeah. So many good droids. There's a lot of good droids in the show.
Disney has like Assassin's Creed level precision with like droids, like getting it right with droids.
Every single one a banger, like even down to the mouth droids. But yeah, Bucket coming out of his little cabinet, his apartment, as I called it, in that first episode, I was immediately like, "Oh, look at you! You're a mess. I love you."
And I thought it couldn't get like more old and war torn and grizzled than like Chopper. I thought like Chopper was like
that boy
rough and tumble.
Hates.
But Bucket has at least like Bucket's experiences have made Bucket like sort of like a wise old man droid, not a complete monster like Chopper can be.
True, he didn't go full guns a blazing like. But I do, like Bucket and Jarek's like whole relationship was nice. Like, I just think of old man and his dog kind of.
That's exactly what
like
it is.
More
except the dog is a fully sentient being.
Right. I remember like my heart sinking the first time, like when they're escaping, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like I know you wanted to make the stakes real, but like y'all didn't have to go for Bucket like that.
Please don't.
Yeah.
He's okay.
He's fine. And also, I love slapdash droids in general. Like, I love you are just an endoskeleton.
Yeah, like right.
Love
yeah,
that
like
David.
well, and we also get a number of really good ones. Like I didn't
get some excellent droids.
mean to make it about droids, but
no,
like,
we're making it about droids. Let's talk about droids.
We're with Venencia. Like I love Torch. We get an R2 unit with a transparent dome. That's cool.
So freaking cool.
All the aces have really cool ones. Like Griff's is one of my favorite because it's like a probe droid head.
And also like those I can't remember their numbers, but the service mantis like droids.
Oh, the
Yeah.
ones in Doza Tower.
Yeah, those are so freaking cool.
Yeah.
They're great. They are
Mhm.
excellent. They sort of like aesthetically feel like they're in the same family as the New Republic security that we see in Mandalorian.
Yeah, I was
the
gonna
prison thing.
That's
like
good call, Alden.
They look
Yeah.
like they would be voiced
those
by
and
Richard
bunny
Ayoade.
droids put together is what
Yeah.
what you get.
Dude, I freaking love bunny
Also,
droids.
what's his name? Is it? Did they just call him B1, or does he have his own name?
They call him B1.
B1 and his whole squad of B2s that
They
that
can't
serve
not
Samika are
include them.
so good. They're wonderful. I just everything was just felt fleshed out in that way technologically.
They felt
Mhm.
they felt so at home with the aesthetic of characters, like the
Yes.
goofy and all that. Like it was good.
Yeah.
And CB23 is just
Yeah.
Again,
Just wonderful.
as we've said.
And
Again.
the one that is not BB90 but is more of a sociopath.
Like
That one
actually a
is-
threat.
That's actually dangerous.
That was
one
a
has-
really good episode.
It has its own BB designation. I forget. It has like BB, and there's like it's like 3 characters after that.
I'll look it up.
But that one is a monster. They
Yes.
did a good job with the threats feeling real and with the stakes feeling real. And I know we talked about Kaz, and we've talked about some of that darkness, but let us not forget the reason why Yeager and Marcus Speedstar don't speak to each other. That Marcus accidentally killed his family, accidentally murdered his, like, I guess in the court of law it would be manslaughter. He accidentally manslaughtered his brother's wife and child out of trying to do a stunt with like crazy fuel and trying to be the best racer, and like because they're introduced like, oh, it's my brother Marcus and he's a jerk, and I was like, okay, like what happened? And then oh my god,
like legitimate reason.
Yeah.
Well, and it's when like something I would count as like that's a slice of life episode to me. That's one of those episodes where it's just like we're just in the goings on of our cast, right? We're not advancing the major story, but we're definitely still existing, and yet still making that substantial. That's one of the things of it being a 2-season show is I feel like no time is really wasted. I don't think there's an episode where it's like this adds nothing, this does nothing. Like it's all going somewhere, whether it's character development or whether it's advancing the plot. It does something.
I will reiterate that in Star Wars there is no such thing as filler. There is
I
only
agree.
cement between the bricks.
Yep. No, I agree, Boop. I think for me, I think I like a lot of the. I mean, we're talking about First Order. I love a lot of those characters. I mean, Agent Tyranny, fascinating.
On the nose
Fascinating
with that
character.
name.
Yeah,
That's
and that
amazing.
facilitates an incredible redemption arc for Tam. The Tyranny
Right.
Tam, like the inverse mentor that you should not be listening to,
Right.
was a great arc.
Right. I mean, just Tam's journey overall was probably my favorite arc so far.
Raising my hand on my old show.
Yeah.
J-Dub?
J-Dub, go to you. Go to you, J-Dub.
So to take it back just real quick. So for those wondering, it is MB13A.
Oh, it's not even a BB MB13A.
MB13A. Yep.
Psychopath.
So anyway,
Mark.
Murder droid.
Hey, Mark.
Gotta love them.
Murder Ball. That's why it's MB. That's canon. I don't know that.
I
but
like it.
That's my
so
guess.
the other would be Burger Ball.
Burger Ball. If you
Burger
open up
Ball.
BB-8, he's a grill.
Burger Ball.
He's full of rope and he is full of burgers. Is BB-8 the Hamburglar?
Could be. There's
I like
comes in the
sold
adult
within his
Happy
ball.
Meals that they sell now.
Yeah.
God.
But yeah, I think, I mean, a lot of those First Order, again, Tyranny and Tam were a great storyline. We
I
talked
like-
about,
I like that of Tam's thing with choosing the First Order.
Mhm.
That was a
Not
really
forced
interesting
by choice. Yeah.
Yeah, that was I loved where they went with that.
Yeah. And we talked about Pry, Commander Pry. I mean, again, great character. I just like those because we don't get, I mean, we get them, but we don't get them a lot in Star Wars where you focus like a ton on the other side. Like, that's why I kind of love Andor right now because we're really focusing on the ISB, which is one of my
Yeah.
favorite things. So I think this show kind of started that focus on, the Imperial or the First Order and everything like that. But again, I mean, we talked about the main characters, Kaz, Tora, all of them are great. Yeager's one of my favorite characters. But I think Mika Gray, I'm going to go back to her. One of my favorites, just fascinating characters. Like, where has she been? What has she been doing? What is her
Love
life?
a weird old
I want to
lady.
know all that. Yeah.
And did you that was supposed to be Ventress.
Yeah.
So at one point they talked about that being an elderly Ventress. But then
Ooh.
it doesn't work because of them having
Stuff.
used scripts to
Listen,
kill her. And
if there was anything that they could circumvent that I would just not ask questions about, it would be if Ventress just showed up again.
It's
I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't care.
It's
Don't-
witch magic. She can come
I
back.
also like in a post-Maul resurrection world, like death is the only people that in fiction that need to stay dead are Uncle Ben and the Waynes. That's my rule, basically. Like those are the only people that death needs to be final for. That's it.
I love that. Because we've mentioned him a couple of times, I just have to shout out for. So I love Commander Pyre. The second best to make the
Sexy
shiny
little
armor look
boy.
good. Made even better because he's voiced by Liam McKintrey, aka Spartacus. Yeah,
Second Spartacus.
from that Stars
I
show.
am Spartacus.
Yeah. I am Queen Amidala.
It's amazing.
Remember they did that in the
I
game?
am Queen Amidala.
It's such a good joke. Yeah, no, he's awesome. He's like he really brought it to that part.
He's done a few voiceover things. But yeah, I don't know. It's just
Beautiful man.
They did well with the voice talent. I think you mentioned it earlier, Lauren, but like really expanding the list. It's not just D. Bradley Baker and a few of the same people.
Elijah Wood. We got Elijah Wood.
Elijah Wood, and like in a recurring role too, playing a jerk.
Right.
Like,
John's
he's in it
mortal
a lot.
enemy, Elijah Wood.
Yes.
Okay, what's wrong? What happened? Why Elijah?
Would you like to explain, darling?
Is it about the good son?
Okay, we can't go into. This was the original Nicolas Cage. This goes back years of
On our
Nerdherder
first
content.
episode. Don't go back and listen to it because it's garbage.
It wasn't the first episode, but it was early on where like you said something. It was just like I hate that guy.
No, you said that you wanted to fight him physically.
But specifically Frodo. That way you have more of a size advantage.
No, I'll take full on Elijah Wood. I don't
He'll
even
take John the
care.
haircut. Elijah
Will you
Wood
take
will
Elijah
have
Wood from Sin
whatever
City?
That movie was called.
Maybe not Sin City,
That's the
but
most dangerous Elijah
that
Wood.
for sure.
I don't know. He's pretty okay with that arms.
Add it to the list of characters I need therapy for. I don't know, but not even characters. He's a real person. I'm sorry, but
The fictional person Elijah Wood.
You know what I need to do? I need to show you that video of Dominic Monaghan interviewing Elijah Wood, and that will change your opinion completely.
I think it's because it's the gag one, right?
It is.
Yeah, I think I've seen that
Video
one.
weeks.
Have you won wigs?
I enjoy Elijah Wood in the context of his Hobbit friends. When the gang is all together, I love their chemistry. I really enjoy a lot of that press junket and
You didn't
behind
watch
the
Flipper as a
scenes.
child.
He's very close to Liv Tyler. He's very close where it's just like looking at you makes me
Don't
viscerally
bring
angry.
your Liv Tyler hatred into this podcast.
The Incredible
in front
Hulk
of
was
Lo and
on
Alden and
earlier.
everybody.
Look, this is not what we're here for. We're here to love Star Wars Resistance.
But he is a jerk in this show.
He is a
so
jerk.
You're justified here.
Exactly, and I hate his character almost as much as I hate him. So.
Jace Rucklin, is it Rucklin?
Rucklin, yeah.
Yeah. He sucks. But we also got for the Hamilton fans, David Diggs as Norad Kev. He's a great character.
I have to mention. So what I love is what you were like, who is that? Like what like
for Jace.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
Because I didn't recognize the voice at first, but
Yeah.
then you were like, "It's David Diggs," and I launched myself across the room.
But when I searched it, what I love is that the top result was actually a tweet of yours, Alden.
Oh, yeah.
Adding him for that. It's just like, oh, thanks, Alden.
Well, that was when I remember because that was when Hamilton dropped on Disney Plus.
Yeah.
And Resistance was there, so I was making the point like, if you like Hamilton, one of the main characters is in Resistance, and Alex Damon, who's a big Hamilton fan, in the replies said something about like change one of the lyrics to Resistance. So I wrote one of the verses of What I Miss as a Resistance verse, and I always think about Star Warsing the Hamilton soundtrack. I still haven't because I don't have musical ability, but at some point maybe. But yeah, great characters. Jace and Norath and Mika and Vanessa and Pyre. I mean, just the people we've talked about so far. And like just real quick about Vanessa, the Doza romance in general as being like this, it's sort of like Lost Stars-y, but they're older people. Like Lost Stars is about it happening. They're young and in love and they're on different sides now. This is we were young and in love. We were on different sides, and I redeemed him by being a space mommy. Like and that he's like the whole Rendezvous Point. Rendezvous Point is in my top 4 or 5 Star Wars episodes
as it should
period. Of any show, live action, animated. That whole thing is so beautiful, and then the ending with the hologram of them together and the it's so good.
Tugs at the heartstrings.
Yeah, very powerful. And her X-wing and Scorch.
Yeah.
Is it Scorch or Torch? Because Torch. He was gonna be named Scorch. I saw in like on the Wikipedia notes, and then they changed it to Torch. And he's an astromech that's like fix things. What about blowing stuff up?
Yes. Exactly. As you should.
Astromech saboteur. I love the spice that she adds in. Like number one, like the backstory it brings forward. Obviously, like all of a sudden now it's just like, oh, Doza's not as like standoffish to the goings on of the galaxy and the political pillars as he seems, right? So he's very just like, no, we don't get involved, we don't do this, we don't do that. It's like, oh, you've got this history as an Imperial. You defected then. Your wife is currently fighting this battle.
Got a dumb hat.
It puts it all into perspective too, because season 1, it's very easy to get frustrated with him.
Yeah.
And you're like, what's your problem? Like, I'm not saying you're evil, but like
you're difficult.
You're just being a hardline, like trying to like cut deals and stuff. And then you're like, oh, you're actively trying to avoid something that you intimately understand. That you like you've been there. Probably have, based on his age, he's probably was there during like the Death Star era. Not saying he was part of that, but it's just like that idea of, okay, like all the older people of the sequel era that were there carry with them different kinds of weight.
Because Jarrett's the same way, like early in season 1 too, where it's just like pulling teeth to get him to really be supportive of Kaz and his whole thing.
Not everyone is Leia. Not everyone's like, I'll fight forever. Like, not everyone has that, and so, to varying degrees. You get, Akbar is still fighting, and some other people are still fighting, but these guys, they earned their peace. Like you see that Yeager fought on Batuu, which is cool. In his picture, nice little park tie-in there, a story that I'd still love to see. But it also informs the way that he's able to be a dad for so many of them in different ways. Even people that are like in the group, but they're not, like Sonara. Like she's like riding that line between pirate and being part of the Colossus crew. But he understands, and so does Doza, and so does Poe. Frankly, like people that ride the line. Like this was able to do a lot of middle road characters. Oh, stop!
Love you, Brian.
Brian.
Brian, you flirt.
Right.
There's just so much goodness in this show, story wise, character wise. I mean, we've talked about a lot. I mean, need we forget Niku? Like Niku is a solid, lovable character, like 100%.
He's amazing.
So for like the younger generation, but it worked so well, and like he brought in, like, deflected some of the tension in that very Star Warsy way, very comic way. I loved it. I love his character so much, and I know a lot of people back then, and maybe even now, give that character flack, but I love him. I love that character. Yeah. And can we shout out Buggles? Can we shout out that beautiful little creature?
Yes.
I love that character. I love him.
And that species ended up in the Bad Batch.
Yeah.
Isn't that the one that Omega sees on the streets?
Yeah. Yes, it is.
That was great. I love that this universe was able to get things that had staying power, things that were able to move out into other forms and stuff. Like that's why I'm like, you would probably, Kaz is a lot younger than Christopher Sean, but Christopher Sean is one of those people where it's like he could play him.
Oh,
So
God,
it's like,
yes.
if it was, if we ended up doing episodes 10, 11, 12, and it's been enough time,
Let's
have
do it.
Kaz and have him in the room. He doesn't need to be a main
Please.
character. I just want to see him.
That was like my wish list for 9. Was
Oh, dude, I thought
getting
it was happening.
Dude, I was
Mhm.
fairly convinced, especially as we started to see more and like, okay, we're really gonna see the resistance now. Because 7 and 8 were very we're focusing on the gang, right?
Yeah.
We're not branching out into the full scale battle, but this is the climax, so it's gonna be First Order, it's gonna be resistance and the gang in the mix.
Mhm.
So I was like, surely,
I remember
surely.
they released because obviously Poe in the first 2, he has Black 1, Black X-Wing, and 9, he has the Creamsicle X-Wing. And he had that's what it is. It's just a creamsicle.
I love a
I'm a
creamsicle,
fan of
man.
it.
They released like a 2-pack of like those tiny little ships, and one of them was Poe's new X-Wing, and then there was a green X-Wing in that pack, and I was like, like I was like, oh god! So I tweeted Christopher Sean like, look at this or whatever, and he responded with like a winking face. It turns out he was just messing with me, but I really thought I was like, is this man telling me that he's gonna like? Because that would have been like the quickest little thing. Like you just cut. How many times in Star Wars do they just cut to a cockpit? And someone says one thing, and then we just move on. But he really, Kaz really earned his stripes as a Star Wars lead. I mean, he broke new ground being the first Asian Star Wars lead, being played by an Asian actor, because it's unfortunate to say this, but that's not always the case. You look at somebody like, or
especially in voice acting,
like Callus is voiced by a black man. And it's like it's a white face that everyone remembers. So it's a very weird industry. But you get Kaz, like some people had a hard time with him at first. I liked him, but I understood that he maybe was a little hard to root for. But he really came into his own and defied my expectations, because I had a theory that I was pretty convinced of when season 1 was first airing, that Kaz was a cover and that BB was the spy. That's what I thought was happening. Because I remember talking to friends and they were like, this guy's such an idiot. Why would Poe trust him? And I'm like, I don't think he does. I think that he's a human to walk around with BB-8 while BB-8 works.
He's the cover.
It's that Kaz doesn't know that.
That's actually kind of
It's a good theory. Yeah, I like it.
But they ended up still making it work, even though it was genuine.
Just like, all right, I guess, the puppet works.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. No, I love Kaz, and I definitely,
He's awesome.
and which kind of segues into my last question to kind of to wrap it up, because obviously it's 2 seasons. It's bingeable in like I think 15 hours.
Yeah. I need to mention though, Niku.
Oh, for sure. Sorry.
Yes.
Yeah.
You need to remind me of the voice actor's name, because I cannot remember.
Josh
Brenner.
Brenner.
I believe it's Brenner. He's on Silicon Valley.
Yeah.
He's so good.
And Alden.
Oh boy.
He
Am I
plays
forgetting something?
Donatello in Rise of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Really? That's the recent one, right? The really recent one?
He is so good.
Yeah, it's Brenner.
By the way, if you are put off by that, it's very different from the lore of the other shows.
Is that the
and
one where
it's
their
very
weapons
new.
are a little different and like Donatello has goggles?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's the one.
It's
Yeah.
so freaking good, man.
It's very evocative of like Gendy style, and I mean that in the era, not explicitly like that artist, but
Ben Schwartz is in it.
Yeah,
where can I watch this? Where can I watch this?
Netflix has it.
It has the 3 seasons in the movie.
Yeah.
Nice.
It's very good. It's beautiful animation. It's really good TMNT content.
The only thing I cannot get behind is Mikey says "oh my gosh" instead of "oh my gosh."
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yes.
There's this thing now with
choice.
modern because you're never going to top Cowabunga.
No, of course
so
not.
like they're constantly trying new catchphrases
Rajaka?
with them.
They're not gonna happen. Yeah, they're not gonna happen.
What was it in the Nickelodeon one though?
I don't remember. It's
Oh
been
my
that long since I watched
goodness.
it.
Well, that was
point
a
is-
good second or replacement anyway. But yes,
Yeah. I said while we were watching the show, this dude is really good at playing autistic coded characters. And like Niku is a character that I was not expecting to identify with in general, but like he really do be like me.
right. And he comes with his trusty neurodivergent water bottle too. If you notice, I love it
right
about
over
him.
there.
And they also did the similar. A lot of people pointed out when it started, like it's the same. It's a similar device that they gave Drax of the literal interpretations of everything.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I disagree because, like, I think with Drax, it's dry. Like the humor, it comes from a dry place.
Oh yeah.
Nuku, it is 100% genuine.
Yeah, which
Mm-hmm.
it's hard to explain, but it hits different.
Yeah.
They're both hilarious if we're one like,
So
but
spectacular.
no, I love that little family. You know, when we talked about Rebels with Milk Daddy from Podcast of the Wills, we spent a lot of time talking about family, the family that show was really about. And you know, this show, it's very much that. Like, you know, when we were watching and talking through, it's like much more about the characters and the relationships and not the big scheme. Like we know how it's going to work out. We know that the Star Destroyers are going to come down and Palpatine will get destroyed. Like we know the big story. It's like much more interesting following them and their interactions with each other.
Right.
Absolutely love the minutia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So
Final question.
with that, the minutia was so good. All of it was so good. It is 2 seasons currently. Do you think that's a perfect little encapsulated package, or would you like to see it continue? And if so, which way would you like? In fact, Danny, who mentioned earlier, they have a big thing for Jarek and Venetia, like back in, you know, fighting against the Empire. So more of a rewind.
A little prequel for this.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
I think that there's huge potential there. Like you could do an all-star that generation on one mission, like Poe's parents, Vanessa. Maybe that could be the story of how Emmanuel turns and joins them. You could have Leia there. Like there's a lot of people that make it, Iden Versio, that make it to the sequel era, that were there. That would be cool to see that. I think that, you know, like I said, Resistance special that does Exegol, and sort of like solidifies a lot of stuff we know about that battle, because like we don't see Lando and Chewie getting reinforcements in the movie, but they did record Billy D doing the message and used it on Star Tours. So if you go on Star Tours now, you see Billy D comes up if you get the Exegol planet, obviously, and that goes in there, or maybe it's for all the times you write it now. But anyway, but I would love maybe even a comic. Like this has such a comic aesthetic to it. They just do a series called Star Wars Resistance from Marvel, and just like let us, you know.
Yeah, I like 2 seasons was good. I would love more. Like I would love to know post, you know, maybe heading into, like we've talked about, heading into like those Exegol Rise of Resistance, Rise of Skywalker. What were they doing? Like where were they off? How did they, you know, eventually, as we know, canonically, we know Kaz was on Exegol.
Yeah.
So like, how did they know? How did they become aware of what was going on? I
Kaz
love
just like
that.
dodging lightning bolts.
Right. It'd
Like
be so
Palpatine would be so funny.
so good. It'd be so good.
Think about who they could meet too.
Right.
Be
I
crazy.
mean, the Rebels crew, we think we saw the ghost ship there too. So like having just tell right. So tell that story. I would love, and then I would love to even go beyond that. Like, give me what happened to Kaz after that? What did they do? Give me a comic. I think you're right, spot on, Alden. Comic would be great. Comic would be perfect for these. I think these characters. Yeah. But I would still love to go back to this animation, and I would love it.
It would be so good, especially post. Like you get to. It would be cool to see Poe and Kaz after the Battle of Exegol,
right?
So they could see, like, hey, remember when I dropped you off on that platform? Like how far we've come, and or people that I've never met. The combinations are insane. Like you're in Leia, of course, talking about the old days, or somebody like, oh my god, imagine Tam meeting Finn,
right?
And the two of them having had First Order in their lives and both having chosen to leave it, and you know the conversations that they could have. There's a lot of richness there. Imagine Claude and anyone from Star Wars Resistance.
Just imagine Claude.
Imagine.
And then go wash and repent.
Imagine Claude. Period. You should do an episode of Nerdherder that's called Imagine Claude, and it's just like ambient sound and a picture of him.
Yes. Oh, it's just
I'm writing that on
an
the schedule.
hour-long stare down with him in Lego Skywalker Saga.
Boop is
I love
booking.
him in that game so much.
Oh
His
my
mission is insane.
Boop is booking
that one
Alden
killed
for
me
that
because-
Claude
right.
episode.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thanks
Good.
for that. That one killed me. Mine glitched, and so like I would hear like it was the weirdest thing because you'd be on Agent Gloss and be where Claude should be, and I could
Yeah.
hear him, but I could not see him. Like his character model wouldn't show.
That's the stuff
You
of
had to
nightmares.
imagine Claude.
So I couldn't
could hear
talk to
Claude.
him. So it's like I just need this mission. I'm trying to 100%
Please.
this.
Give me Slug.
Oh my gosh.
Where is the giant banana slug? I hear him.
How was he fixing the ship?
He's in
Right?
your
Makes no
okay.
sense.
Okay.
Makes
I don't
no
mean to make
sense.
this a Claude episode, but like I just need to address that
Already
question
did.
real quick. I
Slap his face against the panel.
I want you to know. I saw Rise of Skywalker 2 or 3 days before it came out for work.
Amazing.
And there was lots to think about in those couple of days where I couldn't really talk about it to anybody. Chief amongst those things was me thinking about, I didn't know his name. Like I knew the name. I had forgotten it. Like, cause we learned it at that celebration that year. But I thought to myself, I was like, that guy has no arms. Like I would sit there and really think about it. And I was like, is he lightly force sensitive and he could do it with his mind? Is because some people have mind powers just part of their species, like Sly Moore being a Umbar, and they have light telepathy, but that's not telekinesis. So does he have telekinesis? He has his little tendrils on the side of his head. Can they like extend and he can do stuff? Does he have a prehensile tongue?
I
Is
think
Finn
I
being facetious?
you know how sometimes like when you don't want you just wiped your hand after eating a bunch of popcorn, you don't want to like go through that again, so you just like
Yeah.
chameleon tongue it. And so it's just like
Yeah, I've
tongue
been there.
and yeah.
I've eaten
Relatable. Very
popcorn.
relatable moment, right? Yeah.
I've been sad on a Tuesday. Yeah.
I just imagine that Claude's whole body is like a tongue, and everything he touches is like popcorn. It's just like he touches it, it sticks.
Can
And
you
then
imagine like a Videodrome arm coming out of his chest, just some buttons on the panel?
Or does he have a xenomorph effect, but he opens his mouth and a little Claude comes out?
Oh
or
no.
oh my gosh, or just a human hand, the puppeteer.
That's Mark.
Oh my gosh.
This is like going in the way back machine. Do you guys remember when that Rise of Skywalker poster leaked? And we were
Yeah,
all
the
like,
merchandise
"There's
one.
no way.
We are-
There's no
we
way
are-
this is real."
on the show. You can go back.
Don't,
and we
though.
don't, but like we were on the show being like, yeah, that's BS.
There's no
that's
way.
garbage.
He's
like,
holding a bowcaster. There's no
like
way that's real.
Photoshop. Come on.
I had reason to know / believe that it was real, and I remember I was on vacation with my ex, and I looked at her and I was like, "Look at this," and she was like, "What am I looking at?" And I'm like, "It's like a promo image or something from the new movie." And I remember her being like, "What is that?" Like talking about him on there, and
the little Cheeto in the corner.
yeah, he was just like, "Yeah, that dude, what a guy."
Claude cast,
and he would fit in perfectly with this.
Oh,
Mhm.
for
With
sure.
Resistance, for sure.
For you,
Yes.
we've clawed it out. Okay, so
Claude it out, baby.
absent of Claude,
Clawed it out.
do you want more from the gang? Do you have ideas of maybe what capacity, if so?
Controversial opinion. No,
Don't. God dang it! I hate when you do that.
because I'm a big fan of closure, and I am okay leaving things where they are. And
Boop.
also, I don't speculate.
Boop has this insane ability. Like I'll be like stressing after watching a show, and it's just like it's just over. It's just over, and there's so many things left to know. Like there's so many things left to do.
I'm just vibing, man.
You're fine.
We
I'm
experienced
damaged.
this in excess after watching Twin Peaks: The Return, where I was just sitting back like, yeah, and you
And
were
I'm
having a mental
angry.
breakdown.
Because it made it more confusing.
Exactly. That's David Lynch, baby.
David Lynch
I don't know why.
directing Claude, a Star Wars story.
Please.
Less America.
I'm never gonna show you Mulholland Drive.
Anyway, so like for the story, I'm really a big fan of like let's rewind it. If it's the Battle of Jakku or if it's just in the height of Rebel versus Empire, let's get there with Vincent and Jarek, all right? Like pull in who you want for the cool cameos and whatever, but
Yeah.
like let's make it about them get that. Like we got the backstory, we got the highlights that made them who they are for Resistance, but we didn't get their lives, and I'd like that.
Yeah. Oh, you could have Bucket, but like fully formed,
clothed.
Yeah.
Pants on.
And because that plays to the greater story, right? Rebels, Empire, like it has implications.
Yeah.
For something like completely abnormal to Star Wars to just like live in the mundane. I love like post 9 storytelling where it's just life after like the First Order, like them building out you know their lives on Eros. Like is it Eos or Eros?
Eos Prime.
Me? I don't know.
Because you said the thing afterwards.
Wait a minute. No, I made that after they said the ace joke.
Ace? Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm an ace pilot.
I got it. I got
anyway,
it. I realized something.
Yes.
Before we go.
You're an ace pilot?
I would probably really crash, and also no. I realized that we skipped 2 of my favorite characters in modern Star Wars, and I'm shocked at myself.
Oh, go ahead.
Flix and Orca.
Yes.
Flix and Orca, who are husbands, and you know, it's not outright said in the show, but the creators said so. And then there's the whole thing about like, well, whenever we visit your parents, like whatever, like you get like that whole bit.
Yeah.
And it's like, of course, would I have liked it to be explicit? Yes. And do I hope it's explicit in Andor that they've teed it up? Yes. But their interactions, their whole place on this, it's the fact that you said mundane and rebuilding that made me think of like, oh my God, a sitcom of them post Battle of Exegol being like, I guess we should buy a house, like
right. Like, well, that's the thing is like I know it's probably not interesting to a wide audience, and it's a lot of money to spend on a Star Wars sitcom, but like all of those characters are what make the show, and they're so interesting to me. Their lives, like just on the Colossus, would be enough. Like,
I think that
post the book.
Post WandaVision and She-Hulk, a case has been made for the return of the sitcom.
Yeah,
agreed.
Of a genre sitcom,
and so much is there. And I remember we had a good conversation. And like Boop teased me because they asked like, so is it like legit? Are they canonically a gay couple? And I was like, well, they argue about the other one's mother a lot, so
that's a powerful piece of evidence. Yeah,
it's canonical for me. It's enough evidence.
Pretty.
And it's Jim Rash and Bobby Moynihan, who's
Bobby's
like got 3 Star Wars characters now.
Yeah,
he's in Visions, he's in this, and he's in the VR Galaxy's Edge experience and everything. Which, by the way, Boop, if you go to Galaxy's Edge, have you been yet?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Did you know that Bucket's helmet is there? Gloriously realized in live action. It's when you go to the shop stalls by the X-Wing and the A-Wing, the different kiosk shops, the Resistance one where you can buy Resistance clothes. If you're looking at the things to buy, look up. And right there with the helmets, Buckets is sitting there right in the center.
Well, now we need to go.
We
need to go
and
back.
steal it.
Good. Heist.
But yeah, I it would be a show or a comic or a book, whatever's the cheapest way to do it. Because I know it's not going to be like hugely successful, but I love the characters, and that's where like I know you love them. I'm not saying that you being able to be done with something when it's done is not isn't an absence of love.
I'm okay with stuff ending.
Yeah, like you loved it while it was happening, and you still loved that it happened.
Don't cry because it's over. Cry because it happened.
I'm the opposite of you, Boop. I say milk it forever. I literally have a framed mini poster of Rocky Balboa on my desk at all times. A movie that is a testament to never letting things go.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Much
That explains a lot about you, Alden.
much
That
like
just
this
explains a lot.
I hold a grudge very well.
We know.
right?
You're
Um,
practically Samara.
Well, we
Yes.
could go on and on. There's probably many another thing. I don't know. I don't think we really hit on Von Reg. I love a good red boy. We
Yeah.
just finished talking about Power Rangers last week. You're gonna get me if you paint them red. It's just easy.
And is Havina from Squadrons his mother? His aunt?
See,
His that's the
brother,
lady?
cousin,
yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, like well, and Squadrons as well has a lot of tie-in with sequel. Like, I'm begging people, right? So part of the reason we did this was to shine a light, talk about Star Wars Resistance, and hopefully intrigue people if they're not, to explain why we like it. Maybe we want you to like it more or at all. But along that, if I could tack on other things, it's just like, please, like, give Star Wars Resistance an untethered chance. Like, just go into it. Not that it would make the sequel trilogy work for you, not that it would be better than Rebels or whatever, but just that you would have fun, because you will if you go in expecting that. If you really want to chomp into the lore that this does help build out for the sequel trilogy, if you don't play video games, watch the freaking cinematics for Star Wars Battlefront 2, right?
Mm.
Watch the cinematics and get into the lore of Star Wars Squadrons. They all are in that interesting period of leading somewhere, and it's so good. It's so good.
If you combine, like I've been saying this ever since Luke in the Book of Luke and Mandalorian, but really Luke and Book of Boba, what they have built across novels and across Battlefront 2, across Squadrons, across all this stuff, comics, is they have built like an entire pantheon of post Return of the Jedi stories that is just rewards you and rewards you and rewards you until you realize that what seemed like a dream back when the Force Awakens was coming. Like, I'm so excited for 7, but you would hear a lot of people say, I still kind of wish I knew what happened though. Like in the 30 years, like I still kind of wish these had been made, and whenever. I wish George had done them whenever. It's all happening right now.
Yeah.
Like,
Exactly.
it's
Enjoy
all
it, baby.
happening.
Yeah.
Let it happen.
And so
Yeah.
it'll do nothing but pay in dividends if you check it out. And the biggest thing is just to check your expectations at the door, because it's not you, dear watcher, listener, sweet person. Our culture keys us up to having these expectations, because our culture profits on whether or not your expectations are met and you gush and market it for them, or whether you hate it and you play into the algorithm of reviewership and whatnot. Like, it's built on giving you a strong opinion one way or the other. If you just check it at the door, you might just have fun, which is kind of the point deep down amongst all of this faking in space stuff, is just have fun, maybe learn something on how to be a good person.
Please, dear God.
But if you can't do that, at least have fun.
I am available for possessions if you need to learn how to turn your brain off and enjoy a piece of media, honestly.
Right.
A freaking Squarespace class.
My cousin Andrea always says too, sometimes it's Star Wars, like new Star Wars, or shows like Resistance. It's content within this, franchise that we never knew we needed, but then when we got it, it was amazing.
Yeah.
Like, it was a story that I never would have thought of like being that captivating and being involved, but it was good for 2 seasons. It was good. And I'm with you, J Dubs. Like, I want more. I want like a 3rd season. Like, give it to me. I love it so much.
This is actually a patron stretch goal where, for $25, if we get 25 patrons of that, we'll mail you framed grass for you to touch whenever you just get riled up by Twitter.
At your leisure.
Just a little slice. Just a little slice for you.
Well, you definitely hit the nail on the head. Like, I didn't know I needed this community show. Like, I was very much sold on, all right, we're going to build up the Resistance. We're going to get into the gritty with the soldiers and what's leading to this great war. Like, I like Jedi and all this, but I've always said, like, Han Solo was the one for me. Like, way before I was interested in the lightsaber wielding wizards, I was baffled by the Western, saucer pilot, and its weird dog.
Love that.
So Star Wars Resistance, heck yeah.
Mhm.
And then they switched it up, and lo and behold, I got a show that I enjoy much more, and despite only being 2 seasons, has more longevity with me than just cool space battles and
Yeah.
dogfighting and racing.
Yep.
It goes
Yep.
places. It's amazing.
Yep.
And so if in an hour and a half we've not summarized enough reason, I don't know, man, just if
Just
you
watch
run
it.
out of things to watch, just watch it. I don't know.
See you in a year.
If
See you.
if
See you
if
for the 5
superheroes
year.
having sex is upsetting you and too much, maybe go watch this
Yep.
instead.
Oh my God, I saw their feet. It was off screen. Oh
was
God.
gross.
Listen, Charlie Cox can get it, okay? Like it's just
It's
Both of them. Let's just be honest.
Dude, I have
Jennifer
never,
and Matt.
true.
I don't know if you're gonna do a nerd herder on She-Hulk, but sign me up if you do that. 'Cause I have dudes are not my thing. But when he leaned in and said, "I can hear your heartbeat," I was like,
What like
gasp.
not since Stardust has Charlie like made me go like, ooh,
Stardust.
Listen, man,
Oh
when he
my
pulls
God.
out that sword.
Is this gonna turn it? Is part 2 of this the Stardust?
Just
cast?
Stardust? Yeah. I've been telling people, I'm like, hey, you like the Sandman, you like Good Omens, you gotta do Stardust
Oh
or
my God.
Coraline. Like that is the unsung Neil Gaiman fantastic adaptation.
It's amazing.
One of the
in
first movies that we watched together.
And one of my favorite like romantical gifts, you got me the book because like Boop like dropped the wisdom on me when I showed you. I was like, I want to show you one of my favorite like rom-com movies. You're like, yeah, I've seen the book, and I'm like, there's a book.
Yeah.
Oh, it's fantastic.
Nerdherder can historically be counted as we can't read, so
Those are in the canon of your show. You're illiterate.
yes, yeah.
Not in real life, in canon.
We have 2. It's funny because I make that joke all the time, and I'm gonna go ahead and blow your minds. It is a joke. We're doing 2 lore-heavy episodes coming up, both having to do with me having read a book and you not. And I'm very excited about it.
2?
Yeah, Hill House.
What's the other one though?
Exorcist.
Really? That's a book too?
By the
I haven't watched the movie. Anyway, all right. So you know what I have watched? I watched a fun little summer getaway movie. You may have heard of it, but it's going to be the basis for next week's episode. And so, as always, we have a little teaser for that for those that decided to tune in for this. So enjoy this little ditty.
There's a legend round here. A killer buried, but not dead. A curse on Crystal Lake. A death curse. Jason Voorhees' curse. They say he died as a boy, but he keeps coming back. Few have seen him and lived. Some have even tried to stop him. No one can.
Jason's alive. He's even more powerful now.
Jason belongs in hell. I'm gonna see he gets there.
Jason, come on! Come and get me! It's me you won't remember!
People forget. He's down there, waiting.
Chasing lorries.
Yes. So strap in. For the next 3 weeks, Nerdherder's getting spooky. Boop is taking over, and it's gonna be fun. So yeah, so you'll want to
Can't
tune
be
into that.
tamed.
Starting off with a franchise we love dearly, and the horror mythos.
One of my favorite horror franchises
Yep.
of all time.
And it just gets more nuts from there. I watch a movie that I've been putting off for 28 years.
And a book.
You make me read a book. You know,
I'm not
it's
going to make you read it,
gonna
but
get
I'm going to
wild.
read certain parts from it to you.
Oh.
Like the tuna in the bathtub. No, not. It's a trout in the bathtub.
There's a fish in the percolator. So it all starts next week, and hopefully you, dear listeners, watchers, and lovely people will join us. But before we wrap up, both of you have your actual professional, better than this podcast.
Yes.
So if our listeners want to know what quality sounds like and check out your stuff, Lo, where can they find you and your latest content? Because you're working on some Andor stuff, aren't you?
Yeah, me and Andrea on Galactic Podcast are doing our Andor recaps. We actually just had the man, the myth, the legend himself, Mr. Alden Diaz, on here. Did episode 5, so that was really fun. But yeah, we're on Apple Pod, Google Play, Spotify, all the big stuff. And then we're on Twitter at Galactic Pod. And then I am on Twitter at Loro Knows. So yeah, I don't tweet a lot about Star Wars because it's a dangerous arena to get into it.
Yeah,
Twitterverse.
how dare we have opinions?
No, how dare we? How dare we?
So yeah, definitely can check that out. Alden, you've got a handful.
You got stuff.
I do. Yeah, so you can follow me at that Alden Diaz, THATALDENDIAZ, like it or don't to anything that I say. And then Octa Radio Star Wars Podcast. There's a few shows there. The main show is an interview show. Recently we had Mercedes Bernardo on and Ryan Johnson, and then working on a couple other things. We're about to, it's either dropping tonight or tomorrow. I don't want to date this too much, but yeah, Mark Perez in our comments right now actually is on for my next Andor review, Andor discussion rather. I don't really like to do reviews. You'll never hear me give a star or a number on anything that is art. And then I also co-host and co-produce Casually Talk with Ken Knapsack, doing House of the Dragon, Game of Thrones, and Lord of the Rings coverage, Rings of Power specifically. Although I'm sure we'll do movie rewatches at some point. I just literally today hosted our episode 7 episode that was on an episode called The Eye, so you can go check that out as well. I wrote for StarTrek.com recently. I always have to say StarTrek.com because I told someone in my family I wrote for Star Trek and they freaked out, and I was like, no. The website. That would be way cooler if I wrote something in Star Trek. But it was still very fun and cool, and they were a great team to work with. And then I do stuff. I do a bunch of stuff.
He's about
always busy funding more Roosevelt t-shirt purchases, all of that.
Yeah, not as many as you would think. I'm no Jared the Dark Jedi,
right?
But he did get us on these, and they are extremely just breathable and nice and very cool.
I texted him about one earlier.
They've got what is it? It's Child's Play.
Yes, they have a Child's Play shirt. They have the Universal Monsters.
Did you see the one that they teased? Relevant to something we talked about tonight. They are doing a crossover, the Ninja Turtles versus Street Fighter as shirt designs.
I have no money.
I wish they could have gotten Street Sharks.
I'm very small.
If it was Ninja Turtles versus Street Sharks, you have to do a 3-way battle between the two of them and Battletoads.
Yes, Battletoads,
SWAT cats.
You get
yes,
you get Street Sharks, you get TMNT, you get Biker Mice from Mars.
Oh yes. Oof. Like we're just all of the nostalgia.
That's the real Avengers Endgame.
There you go. And obviously we're here at pretending to be professionals and having fun. Watch Bombadcast.
You say Bombad.
It's so good.
You'll have to wait and see what tomfoolery is happening.
I know what's going on.
Insider information.
Free for Scotty.
And so we're live every Friday. If you can catch it and check it out, it's always a lot of fun. We appreciate our guests who come on and chat with us. But obviously, you can get us in your ears as soon as the next day if I work fast enough. But
Pick up a shell on the beach, put it to your ear. You might hear us.
You might hear us rambling about Nicolas Cage and some Star Wars, apparently. But yeah. So we get spooky next week. We look forward to that. Our guests, the content, all of it. It's going to be a fun little spooky month with the Nerdherder. We started this last year, and it was good because we had the controversial opinion that Halloween 3 is the best Halloween.
It is the best Halloween. I don't want to talk about it. Jason Takes Manhattan is the worst freaking Friday the 13th movie. We'll get into it next week.
We'll get into it.
He doesn't even take Manhattan. He takes a boat.
He takes a street.
He takes the subway.
But for all those opinions and more, you'll have to follow us. All the links are in the description below, including fundraisers that you can support with your monies or your shares. Everything from helping folks in Puerto Rico and Kentucky due to inclement weather, our friend Mel and their hospital bills. You can also support the classics. We have What Choice and the Amidala Initiative. I want to push both of those because they're very close to their goals, but also like crap be do happening in Texas. So more than ever, Amidala Initiative supporting Equality Texas, LGBTQ plus, and specifically trans youth and families. Like that's very important right now.
And What Choice? Abortion is healthcare.
Period.
That's just period.
And if you want to help ensure that, then check out all of those links, including on how to follow us so that you are in the know for when we go live next week. To talk about a hockey masked killer.
But not the one you think. No, it's exactly the one you think. I was just trying to be
the only
fun.
one.
I don't know.
I don't
There's
know.
Others.
But until then, until next time, stay scruffy.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. You know, this is, excuse me, a damn fine cup of coffee.